Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Good.
Good morning, everybody. I've got it's 0800 time on deck, and we'll go ahead and kick this off. Morning, the floor is yours, General Furness.
I appreciate that,
Take
sir.
it away, as long as we're up on the electronics. Good to go?
Thanks, so.
Good to go, sir.
Well, first, thank you all for being here. And I'd like to recognize the new board members, Earl Meadow and Mr. Williamson. Thanks. Pleasure to have you here. And what we're going to go over today is our strategic plan. The part of it, next slide, is really the last two actions there, the develop a plan of action and milestone and develop assessment criteria. That's where we are in the process. So when we started this, it was more of a tweaking of and merging of two different plans. We had one VMI plan, 21st century leaders, and then we had previous plan 2039. We looked at both of them, try to take best of breed of both and merge them into a single strategic plan. We're on our way to developing the plan of action and milestones and making sure that we can measure what we are trying to measure, and that we have offices of primary responsibility designated for every key performance parameter. And then we will have to wait until we get through the accreditation process. So if you drop it in stride, it could take you back to the beginning of a 2-year journey, and I desperately don't want to do that. So we will hold it until the you're going to be laser focused on achieving those goals and objectives with definable measurement criteria. And then it's my assessment that as we have grown the core values and mission statement over time, in the final plan, those will be tightened up a bit. We'll go from 8 core values to 4. We'll look at having a mission statement that everybody could memorize, short to the point, with an intent statement that kind of captures what was in the mission statement. So you don't lose any of the context. It's a little bit easier to understand. So next slide. KPI deep dive. We got 10 goals, 20 objectives, and 67 key performance indicators. For KPIs, they're broken up between personnel costs and non-personnel. Personnel actions are planned to be revenue neutral. This means, in effect, for every dollar personnel costs in the strategic plan, there needs to be $1 savings from personnel. There are many ways to implement this policy: buyouts of some personnel, retaining or refocusing some personnel, as well as not renewing contracts, and finally downsizing. We'll look at all of those aspects, keep us in line with our resources. The non-personnel costs, we have proposed an initial dollar figure for some, but they're not always stipulated. They have some, whether it be VMI through its regular budget, the Alumni Association through some type of deliberate fundraising campaign. So, strategic initiative 1, recruit, retain, and graduate exceptional cadets. Build a sustainable mission-aligned enrollment pipeline. So the key thing there, or increase the annual budget for the Institute Merit Scholarship Program by 100%, increase in annual budget for the P Merit Scholarship Program to support 5 P scholars in each class annually. Those are key performance indicators. And then finally, developing a national recruiting program organized at the alumni chapter level. We think this is a key here. We do this somewhat right now. So what I'm talking about is systematically organizing ourselves. So, Colonel Escom can sleep some during the summer without praying to every deity known to mankind that all these 500 souls show up on matriculation day. The goal will be to systematically deliver 500 to 525 highly qualified young men and women on matriculation bed, just routine. And that way, we can fill the barracks over the course of several years by focusing on getting people into the school. And then if they're better qualified, and then working on retention, particularly in third class year, where we lose as many people as we do rat year, just for different reasons. Next slide. Strategic Initiative 1, Goal 2, be among the top 5 Virginia public institutions in retention and graduation. So the second objective there is to reduce preventable attrition through early intervention. This objective requires kind of a whole of institute approach. It requires close coordination and communication between the Commandant's office, the dean, cadet counseling, medical, and financial aid. Each cadet at risk of leaving represents a unique challenge. So strong communication and early identification of jeopardy is essential to achieving a good outcome. The human performance is conducting a pilot physical screening. Our human performance department is conducting a pilot physical screening program during the summer transition program this year to better assess the physical readiness of incoming rats. This program is modeled on what the Marine Corps has been doing at School of Infantry to reduce injuries and keep Marines in training. This program is specifically targeted to reduce injuries and attrition during the first 2 weeks of matriculation, where those risks are high. VMI has established a relationship with the U.S. Army's Holistic Health and Fitness H2F program. The intent is to scale and apply key aspects of this holistic fitness program to VMI for the benefit of all cadets, not just those already pursuing a commission. The Army by far has the best program in the Department of Defense, and we're going to look to them for guidance in this. This will also have overlap to our cadet athletes because it'll apply to every cadet. We're also going to look at University of North Georgia, because as the H2F folks in the Department of Defense tell us, they by far of all the senior military colleges have pushed that technology and this science the farthest within that course. We're going to look at what they're doing and see if we can model some of our activities after that. Next slide. Yes. Strategic Initiative 2, every cadet a leader. Objective 1 is to create an academic leadership studies department. I think we have a great untapped resource in the CLE, and we're going to try to maximize that. So we're in discussions with to study and revise current leadership minor to incorporate interdisciplinary academic and curricular leadership requirements. Study requirement for leadership major and/or certificate program is also part of this study. Basically, the second objective is to maintain strong military commissioning government service outcomes. Okay, right now, we commission about 55% of the Corps. We'd like to move that number to as high as 70% over time, and then increase the number of cadets entering government agencies. So think CIA, DIA, Secret Service, FBI, upon graduation. One of the 4 core values that will be in this plan is selfless service. So we want to stress that and be consistent by making sure every cadet is the leader, but they also serve something greater than themselves. We're working with a relationship with some VMI alumni who are currently in the intelligence community to establish a pipeline in that community that will lead to outcomes. This is a very complex endeavor because if people want to graduate immediately, go into the IC, you got to start their security clearance process when they're a third. So we've got to look at them, and we've got to advertise this, and people want to go into the pipeline. We've got to start doing security clearance work early so that by the time they're a first classman, they have a clearance. Because they really even to do internships, if you don't have a clearance, you can't do much of an internship in any of those agencies. Next slide. Every cadet a lifelong learner, Strategic Initiative 3. Objective 3, develop technologically literate leaders who can ethically employ emerging technology. Okay, we are struggling. Let's say struggles are the right word. We're trying to figure out how to leverage AI and what the policies need to be, especially for the Honor Corps. When can you use it? How can you use it? How do you have to attribute it? There's a dilemma here. You want them to use it. They already know how to a little bit, but you want to use them in a way that you're still teaching them the core attributes of their academic discipline without relying on AI as a crutch. So they understand how to use it, but they also understand how to use the CPU on their shoulders. And so that's important. So we're trying to figure that out. I mean, I will tell you, it's been this year we've had a number of cadets get cross the line with AI, and we're holding them accountable. And so it'll probably be an umbrella policy for the Institute with department policies, because it's in every department, it's a little bit different. How you use it in engineering is different than how you use it in history, for instance. And so we will have to deal with all of that. So next slide. Goal 2, recruit, retain, and support development of distinguished faculty. Bring average full-time salary top 5 among Virginia public colleges and universities using the P Academic Excellence Endowment. Right now we're 6th in the state. And it will take significant, it was easy to go from kind of the bottom of the list to 6 with the investments that we made, going from 6 to 5 and 4. All those colleges have significant research institutions. And so it'll be a challenge to do that, but we're committed to being in the top 5. I think it matters. Our faculty is really, in my estimation, without peer, and we need to get the resources so we can, pay them the right way and keep them here, and also attract those with positions open to get the best and brightest here in front of our. So we will do that. That will probably be as we go into with the alumni agencies, a campaign that we're in the initial discussion phase of. Probably be one attribute of things we're going after as far as resource. Strategic, next slide, please. Every cadet and athlete. We key performance indicators and grow the NCAA program as academic progress rate, graduate success rate. And then I want to add the commissioning rate for NCAA athletes. Our new football coach he said that to me. He goes, I want to commission more football players. He thinks it's important. So we will probably, and hiring 3 former military officers on the staff, 2 sailors and a Marine, I think that played for him at the academy, I think goes a long way of setting the example with our football players that this is a very viable career path, and that one that leads to a lot of productive outcomes that they should consider and pursue. Right now we are commissioning football players, just not at the same rate as the overall core. I think when you lock into a commissioning path, there are challenges for them. Right now I'm talking to 2 offensive linemen, they're rats, they want to commission. We're not going to be able to send them to summer camp until pretty much after their time of playing is done, because you're going to have to go from like 300, 325 to 245 before we're even going to send you down to Quantico or summer camp in the Army. And so there's going to have to be a commitment that post their playing time, that we work with them to get them into the shape they need to commission. So it'll most likely be an after graduation phase. But what has currently been going on is if you can't do everything while you're going through the process, our OTCs are like, well, you're not in the program, we're not enrolling you. I want them to continue doing the classes and whatever they can while they're cadets, with a commitment that we'll get you ready to go to your pre-commissioning training and then commission you. It's good for the program. We don't have, I love our cadet athletes. There's not too many NFL or NBA players on our roster. I'd love to have that happen, but we have to provide them a great transition to whatever career. And I think service as an officer is just right in line. They have all the attributes of playing Division I athletics, to be exceptional officers, to really hit the ground running and have a lot of street cred with young Marines, sailors, soldiers, airmen. And so we should look to try to facilitate that where possible and increase those numbers and with women. And the other thing is staffing needs. at or above peer average, averages and operational budgets at or above peer averages. Right now, we're the bottom. I think it's, and I've said this in many venues, you know, my assessment of the academic program is it's very strong. Stronger than when I was a cadet, and I thought I was educated very well here. Military program is exceptional and more, and better and more deliberate with more training than when I was here too. And I hit the ground running as a second lieutenant. They do more now than we ever did. And so those two legs are really, really strong. We need to continue to look to where we can better those legs and improve and continue to try to be best of breed. But the leg that really needs focus is the athletic leg. We're just not where we need to be. And I think it's an inconsistent message where you want to be excellent in everything else, but you accept below mediocrity in one leg, and then you call it the three-legged stool. So we've got to do better there, okay? And there's a variety of things that we're going to have to look at because revenue is going to be a determining factor. Where are we going to get it? Is it private? How do we have increased revenue streams? They're all going to be part of this strategic athletic plan that will come and nest into this overall strategic plan. There'll be more detail in it with timelines, objectives, and goals. That will be completed most likely before the next academic year. And as soon as this is put to bed, we're going to start working on that. Our On Winning Symposium first week in June is going to go a long way identifying the key performance parameters and things we need to do better to win. I will always talk about winning. We compete now. In some sports, we compete pretty well. Some sports we don't. But what we want to do is win to bring excitement, energy, and additional revenue into the program. I think winning is winning. It's a learned activity. You got to learn how to do it first before you can do it consistently. And that's kind of where we're at and what we want to do. We're also increasing the time that our club sports get to participate. We've got at least 2 that are nationally ranked that aren't NCAA sports because the NCAA doesn't go over boxing, doesn't go over rugby. They have their own associations. But in those associations, we're a national power in rugby and boxing. We almost won a national championship a month ago, 3 points away. We had 4 national champion boxers that won national titles. And rugby, you know, they were ranked #1 most of the year. They went to the playoffs, which was the day after ring figure. They wanted to attend and get their ring, a lot of seconds on the team. And so we rented this special bus so they could lie down and get some sleep on the 6 or 7 hour drive down to South Carolina where the tournament was. They were kind of smoked, okay, to be quite honest. But they did that with practicing 2 days a week. Now we will allow their permit to be more like an NCAA sport. So almost 20 hours of practice, probably 4 days a week, vice 2. Same thing with boxing, also trying to lean in. And one of the factors there is our cadets don't get the number of bouts they need to compete we have to box into a lot of tournaments because we don't have the bout, which makes it tougher to, you know, once you get in, you've already had 3 or 4 fights. So we're trying to get them bouts around the area so that when they go to these big tournaments, they're better prepared and we can compete at the highest level of the boxing federation. We also do very well with Ranger Challenge. They compete very well. I don't know how they did at Sandhurst. Does anybody know? Because they went up
3rd place, sir.
3rd place.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the group that went to England finished 2nd in an international competition. So it's not just you know, your traditional sports. And we have a lot of clubs, but the Commandant and I sat down and we looked at where we can up the hours, and we're working on those permits with the coaches. Coaches got to be able to coach during those hours. We don't really pay them they're volunteers. Can they afford to do that? So we're working through all those minor details, but the whole end result is next year they will be on a more footing like in a true NCAA sport, at least in time that they can apply to their sport. Turn the page. Strategic Initiative 5, deliver higher education in a premier environment. execute the capital improvement fund. Okay, so the ratio of projects requested versus the number of projects in the CIP per year is a performance indicator. Timeline in years to complete a project, planning, funding, design, construction, turnover. You can look at those as we go through. All right, now we have the Nichols Engineering Building expansion and renovation. It's just been broke ground on. Moody has broken ground in the sense that the objective area is secured, at least sometimes. And then we will begin probably by the end of the year, knocking all those buildings down and then building a site that's 3 times as large. So these larger classes that we've brought in the last 20 some years can actually have a reunion function in Moody Hall where we can seat everybody. And so that's really the primary goal. But also, we hope that the building doesn't leak. That would be a plus as well. Manage, operate, maintain facilities with dedicated staffing and funding. A lot of times we build a building and we don't factor in the cost of maintaining and staffing the building. We gotta do a better job at doing that. So for instance, you don't build a pool and not have lifeguards, or maintenance folks. And so those are some of the areas where we have been deficient in the past, and we're going to try to link those better through the plan. Next slide. And then the goal 2 here is recruit, retain, and sustain a high quality workforce. Reduce average vacancy fill time, establish dependence assistance programs for our workers. Some of our workers stay 50 years. They work their entire life here at VMI, and they move. They may start in the laundry, and by the end, they're running P2. They just move up the ladder there. They have families. We're embedded with the Rockbridge County community, and we need to take care of those families by giving dependents some advantages, and so to keep them here and make them feel part of the community. And then the number of formal community partnerships is important. VMI was established because the community was tired of the previous guards being drunk and disorderly in public. So the ties to the community are important. And I think that both W&L and us work hard with the community to ensure that, we're part of it and the community cherishes us, doesn't look on us as a burden. And then, establish a baseline of activities for community involvement and what we do with the community, how often we do it, and what things we do. That's the last slide of the key performance parameters and the goals. And if you have any questions, you're going to answer them.
Any members of the board got any questions?
I do have a question. So accreditation is going to hold us debut and execution of the plan, but having come up with goals, objectives, etc., are these already going to be quiet implementation underway, or are you holding off until the formal?
Well, what we can do without upsetting the accreditation apple cart, I think what we'll do is we'll put the final polish on this plan. We will present it to you all to take a look at it. And then once it's approved, it'll just be, kind of wait for implementation. We probably could implement it maybe at the beginning of 27. I don't know when we're going to be out of the accreditation. Well, I'm looking at the dean because I really don't.
Well, the visit's in October, so get the official word. 27. With good timing, maybe at the board meetings.
So
Wendy, can you talk to that a bit about the plan? Because we had discussed having the plan and making changes to it and how the accreditors might react to that.
I could have a slide on that, but I can jump ahead. I could. I don't need the slide. So it's a 2-stage process with accreditation. We submitted our report at the end of February. And there's an offsite team that's reviewing it right now. About 2 weeks, mid-May, we'll get their report. There'll be some things to review and possibly edit. Nobody gets through the offsite review without something. Typically, half dozen or a dozen things you could address. We have till the 3rd week of August to submit an updated report, and also our quality enhancement plan time. And an on-site team will be here the 1st week, 2nd of October. Might have an indication when they leave where we stand, but we'll get an official report. So their report, committee's report, goes to XCOC board or issue a letter first quarter of 27, probably. I don't know when their board meeting is, but sometime first quarter 27. So we'll know officially then. Be waiting in May to see. Mr. President.
Sir,
General, can we break off the athletic strategy? I don't know if we can wait.
No, we're not, there's no requirement to wait on that.
That's right.
Yeah, so as soon as that's done, we're gonna roll it out. Both of these documents will be analyzed to be the kind of foundational aspects of a new campaign for fundraising and what we want to focus on. And so there will be an athletic leg to that fundraising campaign because we need it. But yeah, we're gonna get right to it. And as soon as it's implemented, we're gonna start knocking targets down in the athletics. Yeah, first, we're not gonna wait on that.
anybody else? That's 67 key performance indicators, so that's a lot of information that the superintendent threw at us. So if there's any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to him. Get some granularity on it.
And once the plan is the other thing is, once the plan is approved, slapped, signed, and we implement it, I mean, Colonel Luna is going to be the data collector to make, keep us honest about, are we achieving our goals or not? So there's a lot of work been done on, you can have a goal and objective, but can you measure it? How are you measuring it? What are you collecting to measure it? And so all those things we're crossing T's and dotting the I to make sure that can be the case. And then he's going to own the implementation of the plan. And we will come back and brief ourselves every quarter and make sure if we have to adjust it, where we are. But everybody will report to him the way he asks them to, so that we have the data that we're not guessing. In other words, are we making progress or are we spinning our wheels? It will be a measurable activity. So
Might have to change those metrics.
yes,
Fine.
no plan survives contact with reality.
Seeing nothing, next item you got?
Strategic enrollment management, Colonel Exum.
Morning.
Before we go to the first slide, just to give Michelle a little bit of heads up. If you remember in January, I briefed on some of the changes in the federal aid office. So with the one big beautiful bill, OB3 is what it's been. I think OB1 Kenobi, but OB3. With those changes, we're still in negotiated rulemaking. So there's really no big update to that right now. But what we're tracking that would be impactful to VMI are loan proration and then the cap on Parent Plus loans specifically. So if you recall, the plus loans are capped at $65,000 per student for their lifetime. So at VMI, you can actually only do 60,000 over 4 years. Is actually 16,250 is the max plus loan that a parent can borrow moving forward. The loan proration, we're still trying to get some information. So in the last 3 different trainings we've had 3 different responses to some questions from the feds. So we're still trying to navigate some of this. I don't think the impact to VMI is as severe as it could be. Unlike some of our sister schools, those that don't require full-time enrollment, those that have a lot of fluidity with their enrollment, especially in non-traditional populations. So for example, and I don't want to go in the weeds because I don't think it's going to be that big for us, but the loan proration strategy is basically something that says if you're paid full-time in loans in one semester in the fall, but you don't complete full-time, they're going to make you adjust how much you can get in the spring, regardless of your enrollment. So if you sign up for 12 and you're paid for 12 credit hours, but you only complete 9, they're going to make schools adjust how much you can receive in your loans in the spring. Yeah, we require full-time enrollment every term. So how the regs are currently defined, we should be okay, but we're tracking. So this will go live over the summer. We have a communication plan and strategy in place for our cadets and for our families. I'll endeavor to keep you all in the loop as well. I just wanted to close that circle a little bit for you this morning. Also, in the earlier semester, we talked about the retention software. So I just want to give you kind of some highlights of what this looks like. We're going to roll this out this summer with some training across post. But for example, we actually have dashboards. So this is Max in my office. This shows us the current core size. This is outdated data, so don't take this for the current core size, but it's by class. We can see those who are on Dean's List, good standing, academic pro. So at a glance, we can pull it up and we can actually see this information. Previously, you've had to run reports and pull it and filter it and do all that, but this is pulling it live for us now. Next slide. So we're also able to track who's at risk. So if you remember, the idea is to look at them as they enter from high school to see who is most at risk, and if they're at high risk, low risk, medium risk. So in our original data poll, we can see that 84% of the core is considered low risk. Green means go. It's kind of a stoplight mentality. And then we established as a working group conditions, the registrar's office, Miller Academic Center, IT, and then enrollment management were involved in setting all of this up. We also worked with the commandant's office, we worked with the chaplain's office, we worked with athletics to make sure that they're going to have their own dashboards that will give them the information specific to their departmental needs as well. But just as an example of some of the conditions, so the conditions will dictate who's at low, medium, or high risk. So if they're not currently registered, that's a retention issue. Why aren't you registered? What's going on? Who are you? If their prior semester GPA is less than a 2.0, we can see this. And again, it's going to fluctuate. As soon as grades come in, it's live data. If they had unsatisfactory final grades, their high school GPA is less than a 2.5, they had midterm grades of C, D, and F, or they have 75 or more demerits. Now, there's more of these that we've established across posts, but this just gives you an idea of how intricate this data is in helping us track the retention through this software. Now, currently the process for either our cadets or for our faculty or our administrative folk is to submit a kind of a referral or say, hey, someone's at risk or I have concerns. This will actually change that process as well. Instead of that occurring through eTrieve, it's actually going to go through, it's called Experience. We're going to work on branding so everyone knows what this is. But what will happen is a staff can report a cadet, or the faculty can go to their course section and report a cadet, and then they can choose what's going on. Like, hey, this cadet's doing great. We want to give them kudos, right? A positive reinforcement. Class disruption, they had some absences, they're missing assignments, things like that that will help us understand the full picture of each cadet so we can provide the resources that we need at the time that they need them. The idea is to help them and make sure we're being early intervention versus a more reactive. Okay, I'm shifting gears to call to duty. So call to duty as of I think the 16th, I provided these. This is a current number of cadets that are receiving this in the core. Class of 27 is at 70, class of 28, we have 64, 68 for 29, and the future class of 2030, we have 76 offers out there right now. That is actually increasing thanks to the work of admissions, trying to help push that out to all of the lists and our continual efforts to steal those from other schools. So this is where we are at right now with call to duty. And before I turn it over to Joe officially, is there any questions on my side that I can answer for you?
If you need help with that call to duty, send me another list.
I will, absolutely. Thank you, sir. Joe, turn it over to you.
Yeah. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be brief. I know we have a lot to cover, but I'll try to be as thorough as I possibly can to give you an update on where we're at for the future class of 2030. So just want to hit some highlights here on the slide. This is the weekly report that goes out to the post community. I'd like to point out the, and actually I think these numbers are a little bit old. Apps submitted were actually in 2019. So this will be the third cycle that we are over 2,000 submitted applications. For the class of 27, we actually had 1,221 submitted apps. So we made a big jump, actually 92%, not this year, but the last 2 years over where we were at for the class of 27. So a lot of positive news, a lot of positive energy there. Deposits says 434. We're actually at 478 deposits. That was as of yesterday morning. So looking at historical trends over the last 3 years of the number of deposits that come in around this time of the year to the end of the cycle, I'm anticipating another 85 to 100 deposits. On top of that, 478. We have about 20 cancellations so far after somebody has paid their deposit. Rolling 5-year average was 54 last year. We obviously came in a lot higher. We know the reasons why. We've talked about it numerously. We've made adjustments. So I anticipate, again, looking at trends over the last 3 years, that melt. So that's those folks that pay their deposit and commit to enroll that decide to go elsewhere. Melt will not be as high as it was last year, but it will probably be higher than that new rolling 5-year average of 65. So it's landing somewhere in probably the 70s. Let's see here. Some other things I want to point out, looking at the academic makeup of those that have paid their deposit. So right now, we're tracking at about a 3.59 high school GPA, which last 10 years, we've been in that 3.57 to 3.61 range. So we're right on target. What is encouraging, and I think shows the fruits of the labor in terms of how we search for students and the quality of kid, top to bottom that's coming in, knowing that the great equalizer, the biggest classroom on campus is merits. And so what happens before doesn't necessarily matter until you show up here on matriculation day. But we've got 85% have a 3.0 GPA or higher, and about 40% of the class actually meets the merit threshold for GPA of a 3.75. Only 4 actually have a GPA below a 2.5. And so those are special cases that we talked with the superintendent and the chief of staff about. There were circumstances where we believe that those 4 individuals have the propensity to do well here, thrive, and ultimately lead and succeed. So top to bottom, at least on paper, this looks to be probably the strongest class that we brought in over the last 4 years.
Yeah, I'm pushing them to. I tell them all the time, you know, I didn't even make the wait list 3 times. I just got turned down. So some of those kids with a little grit, you know, we may want to take a shot on. I know they probably like 2.5. I'd love, my parents would love the 2.5 high school GPA. You know, let me know that. I'm not saying all the time because academics crush you here, but and that's where it's like the art and science of this, finding somebody who his whole or her whole burning desire is to wear that uniform. You might want to take a shot, you know, give them a time at the plate and see what they can do, because they may surprise you.
And if I may, many times if they're borderline or they're below, they have a home situation where the structure here actually will help benefit them and give them a way to focus. And so it actually can help set them up for success.
So now let's say, I think it's just good practice to kind of look at consumer demand, student demand on who's applying to VMI and what majors they're selecting. So looking at appointments, you can kind of see those majors where applicants are selecting the most. You can see the breakdown, 46% liberal arts, 54% STEM. And if you break out STEM and look at engineering only, it's about 30% overall appointments. When you look at those that just pay their deposit, it's actually split right down the middle, 50-50, STEM versus liberal arts. So again, right on track with the academic makeup of the incoming round. Slide, please. So cancellation data, I want to kind of dive into this a little bit. Again, kind of hit some high level data points. I mentioned earlier, the new rolling 5-year average of those that cancel was about 65. We've had actually 151 cancel before deposit. We've had 17 cancel after deposit, and then 3 after reservation. So the reasons that you see listed here, there are no surprises, right? We've been tracking these for the last few years. I think the difference and why I have a higher level of confidence that we are going to probably be higher than that rolling 5-year average, but not at 97, which is where we landed last year with those that canceled, is that we're not seeing or not hearing I can't come to VMI because of finances. The work that Colonel Escom, her team, the foundation, superintendent, the chief, the whole damn team, right? Just kind of pulling together and making sure that cost, as much as we can, is not a barrier. The VMI experience is not out of reach of anybody because of finances. So sharing that, any questions?
Sure.
I would be interested in those that come from less competitive academic centers at high school. Do you have or keep statistics on those that come for the summer program and perhaps take a course or 2 in the summertime before the rat line starts, and how they do compared to those? I just would tell you personally, I came from a very rural area, came up and took calculus in summer school, and it really got me off to a good start. So that's my first experience.
Sir, absolutely. We know, I don't have the exact figures for you. We know that STP does help students and prepare them. I mean, best that it can, for, that 3rd Saturday in August when they matriculate. And we know that they do a better job of persisting and ultimately graduating, but I don't have the figures for you right now, sir.
You do encourage those future cadets to
Last year, we had about 35% attend STP, and our goal for this year is 40%. We want 200 incoming rats to attend STP. We have grants available for Virginians that are eligible to help subsidize that cost and help make it affordable. And then there's a little bit of funds for out of state, but not a lot. So again, we want to make sure that cost isn't a barrier. If they want this experience, then we're going to make it happen.
The grant, if I can, is that Chev Initiative grant or the Pell Initiative grant for Virginians that we received, that 4-year, almost 4 million. And so it does cover STP for any Pell Virginian in full. So it covers everything but the books and if they need boots, but it'll cover the tuition and fees and the room and board for them to attend. And so we've worked really hard to communicate that out so we can encourage them.
I think the governor's question does raise a question about mentoring. You would think that the folks that attend the STP have a better performance later on, or that carries them through a semester. Is there a way to quantify or measure that?
Colonel Timmy's does track that, and so I'm sure he has that data. I'm looking to General Mareshi. I'm almost positive he does. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Colonel Timmy's runs the STP program. I don't have the good data to go off the top of my head.
Yeah, was we helped a lot.
One of the interesting things, when we set up STP with design, with the idea that those cadets would take a lighter load in the fall. You know, so they take as heavy a load as cadets who don't. STP, which I find an interesting thing that they take about 0.5 different credit hours than the rest.
Excellent.
I'll get it from there.
Any other questions?
Next slide. So we'll start left to right, focusing on our yield activities to try to help seat our class. So in conjunction with the Alumni Association, I see Brandon Bissell here. So thank you, Matthew Hart. Just the financial support from the Alumni Association. We put on 5 yield events in Virginia. And over the course of those 5 events, we actually had 607 individuals attend. So that not 607 appointees, because that would have been amazing. But we had about 200 and then their families. We had some alumni representation, our staff. So that is outstanding work. We're looking to expand that program into some battleground states next year, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Maryland. So we're going to definitely look to build upon the success from this year. You can go back, sorry. Some of our call campaigns. So the work that our alumni have done, again, full damn team. We've had about 33 alumni volunteers that have assisted us in calling appointees since November. We've had about 15 to 20 members of Parents Council that have called the parents of appointed students since November. My staff making calls, our cadets making calls, they're getting paid, but they're still making calls, still helping us out. So it's just really been a holistic effort, just doing everything that we can, doing things that a lot of schools don't do. I don't think a lot of folks realize that most admissions offices looking at return on investment utilize call service centers, which is very cold, right? You train somebody up enough so they can provide tier 1, tier 2 level support, and then they escalate something to your staff if they can't answer it. So again, we pride ourselves on that personalized approach, investing in these young men and young women that are applying, and so we're sort of having that personal touch. And then spring open house numbers. So just generally speaking, nationally and as well as the Commonwealth of Virginia, at most institutions on campus, attendance for events such as open house and tours and things of those nature has been down. And that's because of the enrollment cliff. There is more educational choice. So what I think has been has excited me over the spring is to see that both in the number of attendees and the number of registrants, we actually outperformed our open house numbers from last year. You can kind of see the data there. Again, we are continuing to see the trend that in the spring, if you go back 10 years ago, you would have thought that this never would have been the case. But in the spring, you actually have more than 50% of your attendees for open house seniors. That is a shift post-COVID where students are waiting, especially wanting this type of experience. If they're looking to commission or coming on ROTC scholarship, they're waiting until April and even May to make that final decision. With that, pending any other questions, I'll turn it back over to Colonel Eskin.
Open for questions.
I got a question. Thank you all very much.
Nick, what a. So I've already covered this, the SAC COC process. And so at the September board meeting, I'll be able to go in on about 2 weeks. Those of you who've ever had an audit or anything like that, you know, it's some of it's subject to the auditors. So we send our report last December-ish to a consultant. He has certain comments, and then we had our SAC COC vice president liaison do it all in January, February. And she had some comments that were different from the consultants. So sometimes they want more information, sometimes they want less information, some different information. You may be tracking this, you may have seen something on the VMI website or heard about it, but I think it's worth letting you know. So last fall, new president for SAC COC, and he starts a recognition award program for SAC COC member schools. Not something that you apply to or get solicited. And one of the award categories is for outstanding post-college success. And SACS has divides their 180 schools into 7 categories based on if they're community colleges to PhD granting. We're the only undergrad only school that received this award for post-college outcomes, right? So we have, as you all know in this room, outstanding success in our graduates. Some of that's attributed to academics, some of that's attributed to barracks life, some of that's military, athletic, right? The whole education process here. But it's worth crowing about, right? Because I've heard from this group and other alumni over the years, wish we got our word out more about what great outcomes we have. And here's an independent, and one we didn't apply for, that and they look at public records. It's not the data. We are outstanding in college success. So it's been up on the website and we publicize it, but it's bears growing about as much as possible. Next slide. So this is a typical look at those the initial post-college success. We're one of the few schools around that gets almost 100% response from graduating seniors that next year. And almost all of them are placed either commissioned or grad school or employment this is a 6-month snapshot. Every school has a 6-month snapshot from May to November. So this is very typical, a few percent, 1 to 4% typically still seeking something, but vast majority. And this, I'd say, why don't we have 100%? It'd be great if it was 100%. This is far superior to most any college or university in the country. Most schools would be ecstatic if 80% of their graduates in 6 months placed somewhere. Again, it's a credit to these. And I always care about this. Again, it's not just academics, but this is something presented to parents and prospective students at open houses. The parents, guardians like this a lot more than the students. But down under pay scale, return on investment, I just want to point that out again, that something you all know in your hearts. But number 57 out of 2,000 schools in the country, return on investment. You may have heard this before from Chev. We're the only school, public school in the Commonwealth that humanities majors have a 6-figure career ROI. Tell that to parents. It's okay if your son or daughter be an English major, history major, language major, that'll be just fine. If they want to be an engineer, physicist, that's great. It's okay to be a humanist. Fine. Well, not or and living on the street unless you choose to do that. All right, whether they're military or non-military outcomes. Subject to any questions about academics, tomorrow morning or later this morning, we'll go into a deep dive about a number of things. Questions we have to answer.
This is a quick question. What do we do? It's not your area, but it is your area. What do we do to make sure that people know about these awards, particularly my interest in General Assembly? You know, what are we doing to tell them about how well we are doing compared to other Virginia institutions and so forth?
You have anything, C&M? I've turned to communication marketing. What do we, how do we advertise these things?
Through our channels, yes, we do. We send media releases, we do get press coverage. Of course, we do our own content with them, both on websites, social media, things of that nature. In terms of communicating with the legislature, that's usually the government affairs.
Kim, do you have something? Kim Parker is our legislative liaison.
Thanks
to
for the
government
question.
relations. Sorry.
And I might get Amy Getz to help us with that. During the General Assembly session, we of course are in the hall, superintendent leads the team, and we're working to share. Oftentimes we have a 5x8 card that will have bullet points of accolades for lack of a better term. But also we do geofencing. Amy, you want to speak to that a little bit? While the General Assembly is in session, we're pushing out messages, thanks to the Alumni Association.
We've made it a practice of when there's a need, we try to step in and help and support enrichment. And so we've implemented a number of strategies. One is the geofencing. It's a digital geofence around the Capitol. So literally anyone who walks in that area with their phone on, we can connect to and send out great news stories about VMI and point them to other pieces of information that could help them become good advocates of VMI. And then when they go home, actually it kind of follows them home and they get more pieces of information. In addition, we have gone with traditional marketing, and we've put full page ads on page A3 of the Richmond Times-Dispatch, where it hits at a strategic time during the legislature and other times throughout the year. All you have to do is open one page and there it is. It's a mix of these really great points of pride, but then also stories about our great cadets, our cadet leadership, and wonderful alumni stories about what VMI did for them to help them be successful. So we have a number of different initiatives to help that.
I think two things that we're gonna do in the future that we haven't done. The goal is to build not personal relationships with General Assembly members, state officials. We want to do that, but it's more important to build institutional relationships with the same people. So we're working with the governor, and she's committed to come here for a legislative open house day. We're still trying to figure out what that actually looks like. I have an idea in my mind based on what we used to do in the Marine Corps for educator workshops and getting educators to see what the Marines do either on the East Coast or West Coast, because it changes perception once you're here kneecap to kneecap with maybe a cadet from your district or your Senate district, and you can sit down and talk to them. You can go to the chow hall and see how they eat, sit in the classroom, maybe view a parade. All of a sudden, your perception is a little bit different. The second thing is while the session's going on, I've talked to the governor about this as well, and she's very supportive. We just got to work the logistics out. 10 to 20 cadets who are fellows and member officers for the entire session. I think will have a profound impact, as it does when we do the same thing for DOD, where we have DOD fellows for a whole year in a member's office. It changes perceptions. I mean, you get to know the person, not maybe, what you're reading in the information sphere. So I think it's not going to be one thing. We do transmit this data all the time on various, whether it's Instagram, Snapchat, every possible means. But if you don't want to receive that information, it's difficult for me to get it to you and have you assess it and internalize it. So I think the best way is to do events where we can bring them here on post. And they can see for themselves, talk for themselves, wander around and get to know people and see the process. And then they can ask questions, hard questions if they want. We can answer them, we can get them the information, and then they're either going to walk away still skeptical or maybe neutral. And if they were hostile and they're neutral, that's a positive thing. If they're neutral and they're positive, that's a positive thing. So that's kind of what we're going to try to do in the future for this. But we lead with this data, and there's other things. It's just the most pervasive out there or the best data, but there's others that, talks about how good we are and the effect we have on young men and women. And so we continue to push it out there in the info sphere.
So enhancing that personal approach is a big part of that, and certain members of the board might have a little bit more experience in that than others, and we would pull upon them. Just certain.
President, and General, you hit the nail on the head. And I would tell you, having served in the legislature, the best marketing tool are these cadets right behind me. The challenge during session is, as you've heard us saying, they're drinking from a fire hydrant up there. And the time to get to legislators is off season or off session. And Kim, I was just gonna ask, and it's great to see you again, and thanks for all you do, and to Dallas as well, fighting a good fight for us in Richmond. But have you all thought about like having the finance retreat, just a weekend or some type of event here? Because I really think if the legislators can get here and tour and listen to cadets, hear the story and see what we're doing, it will really go a long way. And you may have already tried things like that, but I would look for opportunities again, especially during the off season to bring legislators and their legislative assistants here and just show them what we have to offer.
Yes, sir. We have done as quite a bit of that over the years, but you're right. And I think that's what the superintendent's talking about, is trying to get them here. We've brought them on individual occasions. We've had Senate Finance, House Appropriations come here and meet and get them out. But you're absolutely right. And with this session, we had 2 different days where cadets were in the General Assembly's building. That's not the best time, but that I get tremendous response from legislators when they have personal interaction with our cadets.
Thanks.
Sir.
Yeah, but we've talked about this for a while on the board in terms of, geez, we just don't tell our story enough on a broader scale in terms of not just regionally Virginia, but the nation. And I think that we've got to look at that. We've got to make sure that we're getting our story out on a national basis. I don't know if this is relevant enough, but when I was working at Walgreens, I remember if we were able to get any kind of publicity related to any aspect of our business with, for example, Oprah, our call centers, which were huge, would get crushed. And there would be this interest if it was a product or if it was a service we were offering. So I don't know how we tap into, some of these really large profile things, but our story is great. And I think it's something.
That's the whole purpose behind hiring a national advertising and marketing agency.
Yeah.
And we're in the process of, getting that contract approved, and hopefully some of these enhancements to the way we're structured for both, it affects both recruiting, but also in this area, just getting out your message and your brand will be up in place, and we'll begin starting that process at the beginning of the next academic year. My estimate is, it's gonna take, even the fact that the firm we're looking at has very deep history with the same market, because they have represented a military service for over 120 years. They understand that, we're shooting, there may be 3.4 million 18-year-olds, and our market's about 200,000. How do you penetrate that nationwide? And so that's what we're using. It will help with, because people will see it all over the place. And that's the benefit. They will tell us, what's your problem? Who are you trying to influence? This is how you do it. And they've got great success and experience, and that's what real life. It's not going to be cheap. And I think the initial investment's going to be way higher than we're used to paying for it. But I think over a 5-year period, we may have to, put more money out, and then it'll come into a sustainment phase once we get the brand out there, and then for the long term be very sustainable. But we need to do this. It will help, crisis. And And what they do for the particular military service is they run like a combat operations center. And every time that name is mentioned in the infosphere, they're tracking, and then they're tracking all the comments and all of those things. So, you know, you could buy that capability as well. It's just a matter of how much resources we have to spend on it. But the bottom line is we can achieve some economies because they're already going to do market research and all this stuff for, you know, the 18, 25-year-old market that they're focused in for a military enlistment service. And a lot of that's the same. And so we'll be able to leverage that, and they will have leverage that on our behalf as far as giving us advice on how to best place ourselves. And so when you have the marketing aspect and you have the recruiting aspect, which we're also going to enhance for understanding, you know, it's one process. It's a systematic process that goes out increasing awareness, touching, you know, through our alumni chapters. There's 71 of them running programs in high schools in their geo footprint, service after the sale, which we already do. But I mean, I think my vision is instead of 15 people calling, but we have people in every footprint calling people that are in their neighborhood, and you're touching more people more often. And then that service after the sale, if you've been accepted, what do we do? That service after sale starts to make a difference because when they compare with everybody else who's not doing that, you start to, you know, your brand is one who cares more about the person than just the number. And you start to differentiate yourself in the market, which makes you, you know, a better buy, or at least you want to come here and kick the tires, and maybe the numbers come up for, if we can get them on posts for open houses, we like, well, because I've heard from people that I talk to, brother rats who have kids who went to our open houses this year. I say, give me some feedback, be hypercritical. And these are folks that have taken them to 3 or 4 different schools in the Commonwealth and even on the Eastern Seaboard. We do a better job than anybody else. So if we get them here, we can, you know, I think we can turn, and then all of those factors lined up in time and space over kind of a systematic approach based on the calendar, like what you do in January and February, because there's a battle rhythm to this event. And then we're not sitting there, you know, on my front porch, me and Shannon doing shots on the night before matriculation day, praying that we're going to have 500 people show up. We know that they're going to show up, right? And we're systematic on that. And so it's just a better way to do business. And so you combine bigger numbers on the start, better retention, data, the CRM software is the first step. Human performance would be the second step. So you can track biometrically how they're feeling and get alerts if something's wrong with sleep or stress. You know, this war ring will tell you, hey, you're getting ready to have the flu. It predicted it the last time I had the flu like a week beforehand. I'm like, I think you're full of shit. But then I got the flu. So those kind of things we can leverage with, and then we have to work with the lawyers to make sure the data, who can see it, what we can do. But, you know, it can give people the commandant's office and the academic advisors and key indicators to get left of boom, we call it, you know, intervene before the critical event occurs where they say, I'm done, I can't do it anymore. And then they leave. And so if you bring more in and you keep more here, you lower your retention rate, the barracks is fuller, the biggest funding stream that we control gets larger and more predictable. That's the goal. Yeah, so.
Does address your question or any comments? I mean, the whole thing.
One final, and I'll get with Dallas and others later about this, but and the governor knows this very well. Look, you've got a very active alumni association, very active. And part of the way to tell your story is to involve the alumni reaching out to their delegate and their senators. And I could help you sort of work on that as well, but nothing better than they're back home and they're getting someone who is a voter in a district saying, let me tell you about what VMI just did. And I think that plays even better, frankly, than sometimes the Richmond stuff, which, as the governor said, is drinking from a fire hydrant on superpower. They're overwhelmed with everybody doing their thing. So we'll talk later, but with your alumni association being so active, there's programs that you can buy that can coordinate and then have them send out that information about how well we're doing. Oh, by the way, and I live in your district and I'm a voter. Anyway, enough said. Thank you. That's a long answer.
Any other questions? Answer?
Go back to the previous slide. It seems like we keep hearing on, even though everyone is responding and all that kind of stuff, it seems like every year we hear, oh, the cadets that have gone to the CIA or the FBI or the whatever are some of those that are maybe not reporting. Is there a way we could give them an opportunity to report without sharing that? You know, like, is there, I don't know how y'all collect this information, but it seems like I keep hearing that every year. It's like, oh, those, you know, these are the ones we're not hearing from because they can't tell.
So career services
Uh-huh.
solicits
Yeah.
for to respond to a survey with this information, so it's self-reported.
Right.
I can speak with career services about the way someone can't tell us. But maybe there's a category.
Have an opportunity to
And
say,
I'm employed, but I'm not gonna tell you.
But I'm not
categories.
gonna tell you exactly. Then it just seems like that could help us.
I know.
Because they seem to bring that up every year.
I'll inquire with career services.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Sir, next up.
Morning. We are going to have and receive an update from the Auditor of Public Accounts, Scott and Shabazz. They've been working with us. Alma McKnight had asked that, given so much change in the board, just an opportunity to hear them. This is typically the report each year, just to the AFP committee. But just so everybody has a little context of how we're audited, how that all takes place and looking at our financials, we've asked the auditors to come and provide that briefing to you all here this morning. Following that, I'll give my update on government relations and the budget. But so Alma McKnight, anything you want to offer as a preamble for Scott Shabazz begin?
Scott sent me an email yesterday on a summary. And if anybody wants, you know, if you would like summary, I can forward it to Bill Wyatt and he can get it out to everybody else.
With that, Scott and Shabazz, I'm not, there's the camera there. I'll let you all take it away.
Thank you, Dallas. Good morning. Can you all hear me see me clearly?
Moment, Scott, we're having a hard time with audio.
Okay. Can you all hear me well now? Dallas, do you need anything from me on my end? I'm unmuted and seem to have a clear connection.
No.
Can you all hear me?
Ah.
Sorry about that. Thank you for troubleshooting. Good morning, and Dallas, thank you for the introduction. As Dallas said, my name is Scott Booker, and I'm an audit director at the Virginia Auditor of Public Accounts. I am joined today by my colleague, Shabazz Aftab. For the purposes of our discussion today, the Virginia Auditor of Public Accounts is effectively the Commonwealth of Virginia's independent accounting firm. As such, we were engaged by management to audit the Institute's 2025 financial statements, and our objective was to determine whether these statements present accurately the balances, activity, and cash flows of the Institute for the year ended June 30th, 2025. We will complete fieldwork this week and plan to issue an unmodified opinion on VMI's fiscal year 2025 financial statements, in which we opine that the statements are materially accurate. We expect to release our opinion in a few weeks. We are currently awaiting the issuance of VMI Research Lab's financial statements, as our opinion relies on their auditors' work for assurance over their activity as they are incorporated into VMI's financial statements. We performed our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards in the United States and the financial audit standards included in the governmental auditing standards. These standards require us to review certain processes and internal controls we deem relevant to the fair presentation of the financial statements, and then to issue a separate report describing the scope and results of that testing. In that report, we do not issue an opinion on internal control, but we do include testing results, and our report will include the following 5 findings, which are considered significant deficiencies, significant deficiency being the least severe category of internal control finding. None of these are material weaknesses, which are the most severe category of internal control finding. And I'll offer that these are common findings for institutions and agencies across the Commonwealth. VMI is not an outlier with these findings. I'll offer brief summaries of each of the 5 here now. So the first is Improved Security Awareness Training Program. We found that VMI does not consistently implement and enforce its security awareness training program in accordance with its IT 100 policy and the Institute's adopted security standard. We therefore recommend the Institute update its IT 100 policy to clearly define minimum control requirements and include supporting procedures. Second of 5, we have improved internal controls over terminated employees. This is a repeat finding from the prior year. Our prior year audit found that VMI did not always timely remove systems access for terminated employees. And management indicated to us this year that corrective action was ongoing during our audit period covering fiscal year 2025. We will therefore evaluate corrective action when we return for the fiscal year 2026 audit. I'll acknowledge that the repeat status here is likely driven by audit timing. As our fiscal year 2024 report, we issued it in June of 2025, which left less than a month of time for procedural improvements before the fiscal year 2025 audit period began. Third of 5, we have comply with prompt pay provisions. We found that 3 of 27 payments we sampled and tested were processed outside of the timeframes required by the Virginia Public Procurement Act. We therefore recommend that VMI reinforce compliance with its existing prompt pay policies post-wide. Fourth of 5, we have improved return of Title IV funds processes. We found minor errors in the return of Title IV funds calculation for withdrawn students, resulting in overpayments totaling $212 for 3 of 8 cadets we tested. We recommend a formal review process for all return of Title IV fund calculations as a result. And lastly, we have improved reporting to the National Student Loan Data System. We found instances in which enrollment status changes for students were not timely reported to NSLDS. We therefore recommend increased supervision and cross-training to ensure adherence to federal reporting requirements and continuity in the event of staff turnover. Since we are finishing field work this week, there is a remote possibility we could have additional findings, but I think this is very unlikely. We don't currently have any known issues that could result in findings, and we're very near complete. And as I said before summarizing each of these 5 are included in our internal control report, which will be forthcoming. But these are common findings across the Commonwealth. VMI is by no means an outlier with these findings. In summary, we will be issuing an unmodified opinion in which we opine that VMI's financial statements are materially accurate. We will also issue an internal control report, which will include the 5 findings, though none are severe. Once again, very briefly, those are improved security awareness training program, improved controls over terminated employees, comply with prompt pay provisions, improve return of Title IV funds processes, and finally, improve reporting to the National Student Loan Data System. To close, I want to thank Dallas, Pam, Caitlin, and the broader accounting and financial reporting team. This audit requires extensive work. We began working with you all and visiting Post in January, and we are just closing down field work now. It's a lot of work. Throughout, they were consistently responsive, professional, and knowledgeable. And working with VMI continues to be a highlight of my professional year. Thank you all for your time. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or anything, Terry, you want to add?
Scott, appreciate your time and your hard work here at VMI.
Of course.
Anybody have any questions? Scott?
Scott, Shabazz, thank you all very much. You're welcome to stay and join the entire meeting.
Thank you very much. I hope you all have a good day.
Thank you all.
Scott and Shabazz, obviously their day-to-day activities coordinated masterfully by Pam Brown and Jeff Lawhorn in navigating all the pieces, but a very, very positive and a great audit team. Very, very happy with Scott. He's been the project manager last, or the auditor in charge, and Shabazz the last 2 years. That'll change again about every 3 or 4 years, but I've had a great experience with them. The next slide is to cover government relations. As you all know, Colonel Kim Park. Yes, sir.
These 5 variances, is there an action plan to address those?
There is. So we actually document a corrective action, call it a corrective action worksheet, submit that and report on that on a regular basis until those are closed out. So that's consistent with what you've seen with all other audits, and that's a report back not only to ourselves internally, but also that's reported back to the APA.
So next board meeting, we'll see.
The next audit cycle, the next board meeting will be the completed audit, which will be sort of closing this out. The next audit cycle, about a year from now, you'll see that these should be closed off, and then any other findings, hopefully none, but any other new pieces that will come out.
So I hear you. I would just be interested at the next meeting to see what's being done to tighten these.
Do that. Absolutely.
Thanks.
You know, Colonel Parker works full-time in the government relations realm, full-time in Richmond during the session, and a myriad of other meetings and activities that take place during the year. I thought I would utilize this just as an opportunity to level set. I know many of you watched this session closer than most, but just the high level, some breaking points and highlights here. Obviously, this was just a long session, the budget writing session. Adjourned without a budget, as you all know, so they're in the process now. Hopefully that'll come together here in the next month or so and close that out. There was a special session convened on the 23rd of April, and the budget piece, let's sort of see where it goes. You all know the dynamics at play and the differences between the priorities and the dollars and where that all shall shake out. So VMI, all the state agencies, all those are equally affected by this as everybody starts to make projections and predictions about what the budget will do. And so that's going to be reflected in the budget slides, which I show you next, about what we're anticipating that would be in there support of VMI and higher education writ large. 3 primary bills that were discussed this session that we watched, that obviously very, very close to the 1374. This was the bill that originally moved VMI into Virginia State. Legislator came to post, had a very, very good visit with the superintendent, shifted that to something the construct of the Board of Visitors instead. In the end, that was submitted back to committee, and that bill essentially died. 1377 created the task force with the latest amendments by the governor, which is now in effect. That task force now is that responsibility is now pushed back to the Board of Visitors as opposed to a separate composition of a task force representing Senate, House, Chev, and other representatives that was called for in that legislation. So we saw that as a very, very successful work, and very, very grateful for the governor and her amendments and all others that worked and coordinated the effort there behind that piece of legislation. The other pieces of legislation out there obviously dealt with and this was writ large, not just VMI, just the overall composition and nomination and certification process of boards of visitors. That's all still working in its machinations all the way through. The governor sent some amendments in. I believe those were rejected. So that's still ongoing as that works on through. So we'll know more as that starts to flesh its way out, where things go relative to the overall construct of boards of visitors across the Commonwealth. For us, with all the bills that we were tracking, some 150 bills, those that actually get passed, we have a bill tracking sheet, and then we'll determine, if those all get signed into law and become the acts of assembly, then we'll meet with specific departments across post to ensure compliance. So that's a whole other spreadsheet handing off to each VP. The pieces ensure their compliance, and then compliant work our way forward. So that's sort of the battle rhythm of the session on to the outcomes and to our implementation and tracking that to ensure that we're complying with new legislation that was passed affecting VMI. Just want to highlight the superintendent's interactions with the legislature. I don't know that there wasn't like a week that we weren't there 2 or 3 days, constantly visiting. If there was any opportunity to get in front of anybody at a subcommittee meeting or a caucus group or whatever it is, many hours spent navigating, building relationships, trying to work our way through as these 2 bills sort of got dropped on us the last minute, navigating the time there. But the superintendent's time was significant, his time, his commitment there. Certainly nothing more compelling than to have the agency head, the superintendent there speaking, articulating, be able to make the commitments right there with the legislators and work our way forward. I think that turned out to be a very effective in terms of building relationships. I think if we'd had our druthers, we would have built that relationship in that time over a little more time to catch our breath. But I think, if you want to look on the glass half full side of it, we got a chance to meet a lot of people in a very short period of time with a lot of intensity, a time with people really interested in meeting with us and talking. I think we did our fair share of not only communicating, but also listening in the process. So I thought it was all very good in the big scheme of things, successful session in terms of getting the superintendent into Richmond and meeting with legislators in the very first cycle. We also had the cadets, as Colonel Parker mentioned earlier, 2 different times taking them to post or to Richmond, once to meet with their legislators, a group of leaders, and then meet with members of Legislative Black Caucus. We also took another cohort down, met with their legislators and were there for the legislative reception. A few other times we took the first captain with us on a couple other specific office calls, specific areas of superintendent with certain members. Took some, the first captain with us on a couple other visits. So all in all, I don't know that we've had a session we spent more time in Richmond, engaged with more legislators on both sides of the aisle, really working to build our relationships. You want to comment here? I know that many of you were also personally involved making phone calls and supporting our efforts, and without calling out those in the meeting, want to just offer our thanks and appreciation for all the phone calls we are taking constantly with you all. As you're pivoting things, giving us information, we're sharing information with you. With your relationships there, it was all very helpful. So on behalf of the Institute, thank you for the efforts and the calls to that end. We also had alumni coming, coordinating with Dave Prasnicki, now Chrissy Elliott, Amy Getz, really mobilizing and trying to work very carefully to get our alumni participation there. There was a strong interest in being there, and then having that done in such a way that doesn't upset the apple cart. Here's what the expectations are. Here's how this functions. Here's the best way in which you can be effective. Here's how you can be helpful. Here's how the ways you can also not be helpful, and just make sure that, as we go through there, there's a good understanding of the process, how it's working, and where the opportunities are for the alumni to be involved. And so that sort of summarizes the session. I know there's a lot of other details to talk, sir.
I just want to hit a few points on them. So with cadets, it's one thing when everything is going well and you're just trying to show them what a good job you're doing with young men and women, and you're putting them up in the General Assembly, kind of showcase them. I thought about, when there's jeopardy, and it looks like, because it can look like you're taking advantage of young people who really don't have a choice in the matter. And so while I was, do I want to do that? Because I agree, they're the most compelling messenger we have. They're the best proof source. They're doing it right now. They're current. I didn't want to look like we're taking advantage of them, but they came forward, on my door and said, we want to help. And so for me, that was okay. We're going to do this. And the first, was our first class president and our regimental commander with me in various one-on-one meetings. And then it morphed over time to more cadets, more opportunities, and trying to showcase them because they are truly, phenomenal. And so, but I never really, because of the jeopardy that we were in, never got comfortable with that, because it's like, hey, I should be taking this heat, and but they were instrumental, I think, in changing opinions. But it wasn't without a lot of kind of sleepless nights. Am I doing the right thing here? Because I don't want to take advantage of them. The alumni support was fantastic. Now, I went around the state. I did 11 sessions or speeches in 9 days. Brandon there was my battle buddy on all that. And the whole purpose of that was to try to clarify message, like, here's what our message is. Here's what, I just need you to talk about your experience and don't get into these political lanes. You don't need to do it. Don't comment about Bill X, Bill Y, not your deal. You talk about what this place did for you, how special it is, and, just thank them for their service. Now, the hardest part when you get into a crisis here that I found, I come from a service where when the commandant says jump, everybody goes how high. And message discipline, you get out of that lane, you get shown the door. And that's not the case here. Controlling the message, how the message is delivered is very difficult to do from this seat. Because everybody's got their own opinion. And you can't tell, for instance, a person from the class of 61 how to think about anything. And so there was a lot of times when I was saying, I support this bill, and I would stand up with the patron and do that. And you were having, they didn't understand. And I was trying to tell them, it's a long process. Trust me, trust the process. And they were commenting individually. I don't mind them saying, I told them, you don't like it, email me, call me, knock on my door, I'll talk to you. But when it's in the information space, people can cherry pick what information they want to, highlight and to prove their point or disprove their point, depending on where they stand on any one issue. It became very difficult to control. I think we did an okay job. I think the results are far better. If you'd asked me in January, be sitting here today with where we are, I would never have envisioned that. And there's work to do. We have work to do mostly with relationships and perceptions and how we're viewed and things we have to do here to move the ball forward. But I will tell you, but Dallas and Kim, I don't know how many times you and I, he would, hey, we got to go tomorrow. And I'll pick you up 4:30. You get in the car and we hit the same Chick-fil-A someplace on the road to get a coffee. And then into Richmond, we had 2 or 3 meetings back here. It was a Herculean effort. Now I couldn't have done it without Dallas and Kim. Kim's there, she's like the outpost, the one-man fighting hold a set of binoculars and, surrounded, and did yeoman's work. So and the cadets, I think, and the alumni, it was a kind of a combined arms approach here. There wasn't a day I was there walking through and, my alphas, where we didn't run into people wearing red, white, and yellow. I'm just here to talk to my member. I'm just here to talk to this, and they were on board. And I think, the drumbeat that was steady, consistent, in support of us from cadets, from alumni. And then sometimes you would run into people, hey, I'm here supporting you, have no affiliation with us. And so I think that together got our point across, and I think allowed us to be successful. And I'm just say, I've said it before to everybody who cares to listen, that we wouldn't be here today without the governor. Okay, she's in our corner from day one, from the first meeting I had with her. And so, you go around and you talk to our alumni and they're kind of, why is she doing it? I'm like, she ain't doing this. And then you tell the story and they're like, I didn't know that. Well, that's when I say, trust me, that's like part of why I say it. I've met with her 3 times. I've had 2 other phone calls with her. I think, she is very reasonable and has been in our corner from moment one on this. So, and we wouldn't be here today without her help. So I know we're live streaming this, or maybe we are, and I don't really care, but I think it needs to be said to this group that, she was like overwatching us through this entire process and very helpful.
Ron.
Sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to add one other public thank you as well. I appreciate what the superintendent said about the governor. for sure, but I also think it's worthy of noting that the former governor was more involved than anyone in this room knows other than me in helping through this entire process. And he has received lots of criticism in the past, but for those alumni who are paying attention, trust you me, he is your friend and done a hell of a lot for you this year behind the scenes, with him having been a former governor, an alumni of this institution, and now a member of this board. So without Ralph's involvement, who I've known for a lot of years, this would not have transpired the way that it did ultimately, and will continue transpiring because of his relationships, uniquely so as the chief executive of Virginia, his ability to talk to people. So we're all out there understanding clearly, whatever the past is, the past is the past, but the current and future is, this man supports you all greatly, very much so.
And just to piggyback on that, because I had several conversations with a lot of misinformation about what transpired while he was in office. I know personally that he was not, the bad guy that he was made out to be, that he actually provided a lot of air cover for VMI during that time. So again, like I said, I know there's a lot of animosity about what happened with Barnes and Thornburg before, but again, like I said, I know personally. So yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that.
Thank you, Lester, Don, appreciate it. Jim, to the seat.
Well, I guess the only comment I want to make, and it's actually directly to Dallas, is Dallas, you've taken over as CEO of the alumni agencies. I think the vast majority of alumni behaved well, but there were some that actually made the challenges more difficult. The class of 73 got the ball over the goal line on the alumni credo. And if we're going to expect cadets to behave the way that we want them to behave and to become great leaders, then alumni need to set the example. And we need to hold them accountable when they don't. So, and that's going to fall, that's yours.
Thank you.
I think getting that message, go ahead.
So since Jim mentioned the job you're about to take over, what I was going to do is use this as an opportunity to just once again renew a request, which is from the time I was in the General Assembly with the governor, superintendents would come every year to meet with us and visit, and you would come, and Kim was there from the jump. And if I said it once to General Knapp, I said it at least a half dozen times to General Bunting and General P, to everyone that came to visit me while I was in the General Assembly. We've got to get the alumni organized by legislative districts for the purposes of enlisting their support when necessary. And you all are going to have all of that data sitting right there, and you can take that list and you can hoard it and guard it like it's Midas's treasure, or you can put it to work on behalf of the school, not just for fundraising and development purposes, but for advocacy purposes on our behalf. And there's I hope when you go over there, precisely because of the work you did in Richmond, that in your new role, you'll see the value of that resource and put it to work in some systematic way where we can begin to start to develop tiger teams of alumni in each legislative district that are not going to go and wait till January to visit with their delegates and senators, but are going to go in May and June and July and take them out and have a cup of coffee with them back in the district to get to know them and establish a long-term relationship. So relationship is more than just showing up at their door in the middle of January with your hat in your hand to ask them to vote for something or against. Relationship is something that's built over time, and we've, the best time. When's the best time to plant a shade tree? 100 years ago. Next best time is now. We should have been doing this for 30 years, but you've got an opportunity when you go over there. You'll be empowered to make that happen. I hope you'll take that with you. Thank you.
One of the things that I think's been mentioned is we've been not the best at getting the message out. It's a great message that hasn't been told well. But there's a couple of target audiences. One is the General Assembly, but one is also the alumni. A lot of alumni don't know the good things that are going on. We need to get that message out, which will then transmit itself or convey itself to the General Assembly and other influencers in key positions. But that's 2 cents. Anybody else then? Thank you very much.
Sure. So we'll shift next to the budget. This is just so we're gonna close out 26. This is the making it 27 you all will adopt in this committee, in this board meeting, the fiscal year 27 budget. So we've revised some assumptions since we last saw you in January. We've revised our projections from 500 to 480. That is from a budget perspective. So if we're successful, and I really anticipate that we will be at the 500, then we've actually got some latitude to start to restore some other budgets, but we've made some various reductions across the budget to bring that more in line with what the last several years have been, because we've budgeted higher and had lower, and we've carried those balances through over time. This year, we're going to go ahead and just project the 480. And if we get higher, wonderful, we have that to restore some budget. So we're projecting a new class of 480, 307 Virginians and 173 out of state. The old core, you can see our projections there of 1116. And then finally at census date, which is really the mark on the wall, the overall enrollment of a 1594. So that's about 105 increase as this class of 26 rolls off. And that's assuming the 480 comes in. If you get a higher class, of course, those numbers hit higher. As was mentioned yesterday in the ELV orientation, fiscal year 26 really was the bottom in terms of enrollment. So we're just starting to now climb our way back out over all these enrollment challenges that we've got as we start to navigate the way forward. There's just the overall enrollment in census day, and then just the averages we play between the spring and the fall and the spring semester. Just from a funding standpoint, projecting 35.4, we don't know exactly what that will be. We built into this the most conservative of assumptions. So from our budget standpoint, we don't know where the state will go on pay raises, 2% or 3%. We're projecting from our cost standpoint, because we carry a portion of those increases to 3, if it's 2, then our budget number gets a little more flexible and have more room. So we've budgeted here the VMS DEP funding, the affordability funding, other pieces. What we don't know is other operational requests will take place with those. So the state funding, we're projecting 35.4. We know from the private side, we get those projections early, 38.4. Tuition and fees bring in 70 million. Other concessions, commissions, other revenues of about $8 million. We back out the financial aid because that comes in also as that's also a tuition payment, right? So someone receives a scholarship, that's private money coming in, so we just back out. So that really is a net operating budget of 126.2. This is the breakdown of what the tuition fees will be for in-state and out-of-state cadets. Well, net comprehensively, that's a 2.9% increase for Virginians, a 3% increase for out-of-state cadets. There's just the overall tuition and fee revenue, how that breaks down, tuition versus the fees. This is a helpful chart because it shows where we are relative to the consumer price index, which is the dark blue, and the higher education price index, which is light blue, in-state and out-of-state. And you can see we obviously don't know exactly what those data points are going to be for 26 because we're in 26. So we're obviously creeping above. I don't know really where the CPI will be in 26 based upon recent trends. I expect that to actually slant a little bit up, but you can see we're just crossing over in both cases with the consumer price index, but still sitting below the higher education price index. Just to show you all some longitudinal data. I think that's what this also does, just show just the history of where we've held, where our rates of tuition and fee increases have been net. So there are some cases we did tuition and fees at 0. There's other years where we had tuition at 0, but we still had fees. And so that doesn't really necessarily show the 0, but we have held tuition at 0 3 times in the last 7 years. So just as getting after a lot of the conversations that we've had on affordability, and certainly you've heard another perspective of it coming from enrollment and the financial aid packaging. We anticipate about a $4.4 million in increased costs, which are incorporated into this budget. That's the salaries, as I mentioned, for the full-time and adjunct faculty. That 3% increase, we built that in. I don't know really where that will go with the state. We built in the health insurance costs of 13.3%. I know many of you are seeing that across your industries as well. We've got the contractual increases on utilities, IT services, the Microsoft contracts, our HVAC contracts, food services, all those things have normal escalation pieces in them. You don't really go back and explain to Microsoft, no, we don't want to pay that. I mean, some of these just come. We've incorporated those in the budget. They've also just recognized there's a number of strategic initiatives the superintendent's trying to lay out as he talked about the strategic plan. So we've got about $4.4 million in increased expenses, which is incorporated into this budget. This is the breakdown of the revenues. This is the top, the state on the education and general funding, auxiliary, and UMA, which is the unique military activities, private fund support, other income, the athletic revenues, backing back out the financial aid, the 126.2, and you just see how we'll spend it. So for those who are new on the board, we have different colors of money. We spend money in supporting the education and general program. Call that the academic mission and the general overhead. Superintendent, the staff, the administration pieces, that's the E&G. We'll spend it in auxiliaries. This is the mess hall, laundry, tailor shop, all the other auxiliary enterprises, armory. And then we have the unique military activities, which gets into not only uniforms, but gets into some specialty personnel like room inspectors and TAC officers and pieces that come in the commandant's lane, but it's also got other uniform elements that support the cadets. This is a separate appropriation that both VMI and Virginia Tech have. The legislature carved out, a few decades ago. And then we've also got the revenues or the expenditures in athletics. Just in terms of where we are in the timeline, we briefed you all our preliminary assumptions in the last meeting. We got your direction on the tuition and fees. We had an interim meeting, get a sense and feel this overall 3% increase in tuition seemed to be a pathway forward. I've shown you some of the breakdown. Those we'll work these in more details in the AFP committee meeting. We'll have the end of the session, reconvene. Here we are adopting the budget. Sometime in May, we'll get the final state budget and then we'll implement it just in terms of going forward, because there's going to be some differentials in what we budget versus the actual. We always come back in January to make those final adjustments. What the state will do, you don't know. We'll adopt a budget today and then we'll make some official mid-year adjustments to adjust the budget up or down as needed based upon the final outcome of what comes out of Richmond. That's my briefing on the budget and government relations and the APA, subject to your questions, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I have a couple quick questions. One, tuition wise, it's just overall, how do we compare to other Virginia state institutions? One. Two, what are their increases annualized? I know I've heard this comment that we've had a number of years, we didn't have any tuition increase, and yet everything you keep talking about is 3% this, 3%. So I'm curious. I don't want to relive history, but I would assume going forward, we want to be more mindful of that fact as inflation is a reality and costs go up. So how do we compare to other state and out of state as well with other institutions located in the Commonwealth of Virginia?
We have a table, I'll get that out to the board, that actually shows in-state, out-of-state, and it looks at all the institutions. And we also incorporate in there some of these others like Texas A&M and Citadel, so you can see that measures up. We usually sit in the top 3 or 4 on the in-state, top 5 out-of-state.
Higher than, you mean higher, top 3 or 4?
We're among the most expensive.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
And we are among the most expensive. What I like to just sort of explain, articulate, we're not providing a 5-day-a-week education. So there's elements of all those costs when you look at the overall comprehensiveness of our experience. That's all incorporated into it. And I think, as parents and families understand that, and you really drive home a couple of that with the financial aid component to it. I mean, we've been able to make a effective case, but we have that data, sir. I'll get that out to the committee. I may be able to hand that out tomorrow morning. And we have that and could show that. If not, I get that separately.
We had a meeting last week and he was on the council of, tell me what.
It's the focus group. It's the fiscal officers in colleges and universities, state supported is what that stands for. We have a monthly meeting of all my counterparts at the other state schools. And some of them threw out their tuition fee increases. I think JMU said they were going up 2.5 in tuition, but their other fees were going up like One fee was going up 5.9%, one was going up 3.9. George Mason said they were going up. They didn't give an increased percent. I know Virginia Tech went up. Dallas, do you remember the percent?
They went 3 on tuition. and
Three, I
their fees
think,
were at
and
7.
UVA went up 4 or 5%. So we're not alone, I guess. We're probably kind of in the middle.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing today? I'm fired up to be here. We're rounding out my second cycle. Of my fourth semester. And as I said, in my first flashbang amongst this audience, it takes time to adjust and affect culture. But I think we're beginning to see that turning of the corner with culture. And I want to kind of give you a 5-year look back. What I want to do is preface this slide to just talk about why 2 semesters are completely different instances in time. So you're going to have more people in the fall. So in the fall, we have some of our mature returning for their 9th or subsequent semester. So we have a lot of 5th yearmen. We also have a large rat mass. We also have fewer people that are studying abroad. So your numbers in the fall being significantly different than the numbers in the spring are based on those factors. In the spring, we're going to see December graduations. We're going to see attrition amongst the rat mass primarily, but also the you're also going to have a lot more people doing study abroad in the spring semester. So that's why you're going to see an offset. Why does that matter? It kind of talks about some of the numbers and why you would think maybe the numbers in the spring adjust. But if you look at penalty tours go up. And the main factor in maybe penalty tours being an increase in the spring is that rat mass becomes 4th classmen. And then they enter the land of choices. Some make good choices. Some don't make good choices. So that's one of the intervening factors of why the numbers may not align as you track them differently because those variables in each semester are different. But what we're looking at primarily from my perspective is if the average number of demerits per cadet remains somewhere between 22 to 28 each semester, we should be entering a equilibrium of where I think the number of people on conduct probation will probably stabilize, where we will see the starting numbers. And I think 45 is the number that I'm looking to achieve right now. If we start and end a semester with 45 or less, we're probably in that zone of what we're looking at. The metrics that really tell me we're heading in the right direction have to do with the number of cadets exceeding 75 and or 100 demerits. So as we've gone through this process over the last 3 semesters that I've completed out, entering into this semester when we arrived in January, I told all cadets that we are going back to basics. And basics means there will be 0 adjustment to your record. We had adjusted some numbers to try to begin to develop, culture in the core of learning and teaching and showing them how to do it. But this semester, I told all cadets that you will stand upon your own merits. Don't expect us to adjust your number, which means reduce the number of demerits you have over the course of the semester. Also, once you achieve that number that's large, that's when I begin to take you to the superintendent and he will determine whether you need to remain at the institute or find other pastures, or at least take a knee, determine that this is a place for you. So we haven't waited until the end of the semester for anybody that achieves 100 or more demerits. I'll let them stay here and continue to pile up demerits when they've demonstrated they won't necessarily aspire to be here. So we've seen that. Ironically, that does not mean we have more suspensions than we would have had in prior semesters, but we do see that number coming down. We do see the adjustment of individuals in their behavior is starting to more normalize. Now, that being said, I would say we were at 34 last week. Our 4th classmen had a spat of bad choices, so that number has spiked a little bit. They had a pretty bad weekend when it came to alcohol-related incidents as they're celebrating the election of the class officers, maybe, I don't know. But we are beginning to see what we want to in terms of the number of cadets are beginning to buy into the system and more routinely on a day-to-day basis perform the standards that we're looking for from all cadets. I think you get an opportunity with Jamal and yesterday to talk with him and see some of kind of his athletic team performance, and you definitely see a normalization amongst a lot of team cultures there too, and changes across the board.
Me, I don't look at whether it's an athlete or a non-athlete, because that has not been an issue since my first term here. I begin to see across the board cadets are doing cadet behaviors. It's cadet normalization. So we're starting to see that across the board. That's all. So what are we preparing for the remainder of this semester? It's really about focusing on the fall. Preparing and teeing up our leadership teams from the class of 2027 to begin to run their rat line and their barracks experience. We've selected all our regimental leaders. The class system for 27 has picked the leaders of their relevant organizations of the Officer of Volunteer Association, Cadet Equity Association, and the Beloved Iraqi Square Committee. They've selected all their leaders. About 2 weeks ago, we spent a Friday evening and a Saturday afternoon teeing them up for them to do their strategic planning to plan what they want to focus on for next year. So I have 3 of the regimental leaders in here today. You will have the opportunity of the Corps Military Affairs Committee to meet a lot of the rising class and regimental leaders, but they are fired up and ready to go. Our job amongst the commandant staff and working with other whole of institute people is preparing them with the tools that they need to execute their mission. So they've come up with their mission statement. They have a plan of attack of which they were going to launch out to. We will spend the remainder of now between graduation, giving them the tools and jobs and changeover and working with their current class of 2026 leaders to try to learn their jobs so they hit the ground running when they come back in August. One of the fundamental issues that I want to hit along with the superintendent is that dike training. We really need to make an influence there. Not that I don't have great dikes and not that, we can improve some dikes. I have great variability between how a dike performs. I want to draw that continuum in where the average dike is performing many of the right side issues to prevent a cadet from going south. Left of bang, that General Furness talked about a little bit earlier. My focus also is on that class that the husband is preparing for me. They are taking a physical fitness assessment. That gives us a where are they at physically type perspective. The numbers of matriculants I've received those for is now 229. The numbers, at least at this point, are tracking a more physically fit class coming in than the year prior, which was the first year we assessed that. I don't know whether it was the early bloomers, the first to the party providing me the test, but right now we appear to be anywhere from 7 to 10 percentage points better in terms of their performance, in terms of overall score, as well as percentage of passing. I have given them an optional 10-week PT program. It does not require any type of gym, any types of weight. It is purely working with the Health and Performance Wellness Department. We provided them the opportunity to be able to prepare in the 10 weeks leading up to matriculation through calisthenics, other types of resistance training, evolution circuit training, of where they can build up the stamina to prepare themselves for matriculation day. So my personal focus areas, once cadets do close out barracks and we transition to the summer session room, is to focus in 3 areas, and that's working on cadet retention. What I've learned over the last 3.5 semesters is we focus a lot on rat mass and rat retention. We won't necessarily put the same level of effort, thought, and fortitude into the 3rd retention. And what dawned on me there is on any academic Saturday that the dean may have, we put a lot of effort to try and provide successful alternative for our rat mass. I think we need to turn up the rheostat and begin to invite the 3rds more into that process. So working with the regimental S2 and the regimental staff, as well as their company representatives, that's one area that I've thrown out to them that's a focus. We have in some of the NCAA circles, we have NCAA study hall. What I talked to the regimental system about during their on-site leadership was we focus on athletes, but what about all the non-athletes? And what are we doing to make sure we're getting them out of there? I shouldn't see lights on the 4th and 5th stew during evening study. Those are the issues that I've asked our regimental system and especially the S2 to look at as we go forward. The mentorship program we started this year, I would say we've made some strides, but it's still too cumbersome, too onerous that we're not achieving the tactical level of effect. I think from a staff to first-classman perspective, we did a pretty good job of providing consistent mentorship to those in leadership positions across the regimental system, class system, NCAA, sports. What I need to do is have that go down. So individual cadets in those first class positions did well, individual second classmen did well, but it's still a little too onerous, and I have to work with the regimental leadership and the class leadership to find a system of where we can actually incorporate that, that they develop the supervisory and leadership skills to give people expectations and then a midterm performance. And the way that we're probably going to do that is working with my staff is on Wednesdays, I get an hour of time. So if it's important for us to do, I have to dedicate a portion of my time for them to be able to do it. We'll use some of those Wednesday training blocks that traditionally we maybe had reserved for room inspections or some other things. We're going to commit to this program at least twice over the period of the semester so they can get those fundamental activities done and provide the supervision they need. And incorporating the RATs this year. I really want RATs to begin to get some non-adversarial type of feedback to where they actually get to sit down, digest what their strengths and weaknesses are, and get actual, here's what you really need to do to improve and how from some of those senior company leaders within their particular company. And then the final thing we're working on, I'm working on my counterparts down at the Citadel, is working towards in the spring of 2028, trying to come up with a exchange system where somewhere between 1 to 3 cadets rise in or in their second semester of their third class year from an ROTC perspective and from a VMI cadet perspective. It appears to be the best semester to do it, is trying to set that up and work out an exchange to where we can begin to have that leadership opportunity that you get being in an uncomfortable place, a new system. Because that's, as a military leader, as soon as you learn your job, we're going to pick you up, we're going to move you someplace where you don't know anybody, but you got to learn and hit the ground running because you're a tactical level leader. That's what this program is designed to do. We think that starting with the Citadel and then possibly expanding to other senior military colleges would be beneficial to the Institute. These programs already exist with the service academies under the ROTC program. Of course, you're competing at a nationwide level. So there are 145 Air Force ROTC detachments. At Penn State, I was able in my 3 years there to have 2 cadets that did exchange for a semester during their junior year in the fall. They did it at the Air Force Academy. Highly beneficial for them as non-service military academy people to have had experienced that before they entered the Air Force, especially working with a lot of people that they will from the academies as well as the senior military colleges. It helps them better understand the shoes of those that they work with and the path of which they got to their commission. So I think if we incorporate this across our service or senior military colleges, it would be beneficial for our cadets to have a greater understanding of what it's like to maybe walk in the shoes of some of our other SMC counterparts. So pending any questions from the board, that's kind of the short version of what we hope to finish out the rest of this semester. I'll look back to where we're at on demerits and where I think we have begun to influence in a positive direction our culture to where we're getting back to the standards base that the institution needs to impart upon our young men. Yes, sir.
Yeah, could you just real quickly again, I know you already covered it, but I had a really good conversation with Don Hall yesterday. And we were talking about the importance of retention. And what I've observed over the last 3 years is you've gone a long way in terms of balancing retention with holding the cadets to the appropriate standard and moving us in a direction where they don't need, I guess, what I'd call a handicap initially and then conforming to the system.
So I think it begins, first of all, is a level expectations of consistency. So we do consistently the same number of room inspections each week. We consistently do uniform inspections on Monday morning BRC formation. So consistently executing the areas of where they're held to a standard is important. And then within our room inspectors, our TACs, our cadet captains, it's also leveling out what is the standard, right? One of the things that I talked about with our corporals is there's not a Bravo company standard and an India company standard, right? For RATs, there's not a RAT shoe shine standard versus a cadet shoe shine standard. And then, for the people that may be inspecting rooms and I inspect your room, there probably should be a level of effort in your room before you walk up to the 4th and the 5th student and you place somebody on report when I see the same discrepancies in them. That's kind of some of the cultural each coach mentor aspects we've been working on. But we consistently apply that and try to tighten kind of the bandwidth of a room inspector is going to come in your room. I'm not going to give you 10 demerits because I'm a highly attentive to detail person. My room inspectors are instructed, if you see more than 5 demerits of discrepancies, it is room not an MI order. It's extremely gross. It's room and gross disorder. That getting back to the tech would walk up to my room, look in the window and go, that room is not an MI order, and just walk to the next. It's trying to get back to those blocking and tackling fundamentals. Answer your question, Mr. Chow?
Good. No, we talked earlier, and thank you.
But we from a TAC level, whenever you're kind of on that rise and you're struggling, we do have counseling sessions, but we incorporate our company commanders to have counseling sessions at the cadet level, working within the realm of FERPA, which can be difficult, right? So when I'm working with my company commander as part of Gulf Company as a TAC, I'll reach out to Mr. Augenbaugh and I'll say, Mr. Augenbaugh, I really would like for you to engage Cadet Furness, see how he's doing academic. Or, you know, there's Cadet Havard over there that just, you might want to see what's going on in his life because it's kind of a train wreck across conduct and academics. So that's kind of how we present to them versus Havard's got this many demerits, his GPA is this. What I'm hoping to do is they talk with the individual, they find all that out. That's what typically happens. And that's what, as a leader, it's reinforcing that supervisory skill of you got to get to know your people. You have to talk to your people to find out the problem.
I appreciate your overview and your efforts. And I was just curious, you mentioned alcohol. A lot of us here in the room were cadets, and what type of programs or counseling do you all have, or education for those when you go to other campuses on weekends? Because what I think the reality is, it's human nature. People have to obey the rules, cadets do here, and sometimes they tend to make up for lost time.
So General Furness and I have talked about maybe some of the negative training principles I received as a cadet at VMI, and that might be in the responsible use of alcohol. So we do, especially in the furlough periods, they will receive not only from their cadet company leader, but also their TAC. They will kind of receive that departing coach briefing. It's not necessarily what I've learned as defined on everybody is out of here on every weekend. Now it's a little bit more eclectic. I mean, I will have firstclassmen that I have to push out of barracks because they'll just stay and play video games for whatever reason. So it's not quite the same tempo that maybe it was in your day. We see more of not me getting a report from Radford University that Havard was an idiot. We had to, put him in our training. That's not what we get. It's more of in an academic building, my TAC is going around and we see somebody that shows sign of that, or in the work and or the shot bottles that we find in a person's room. So it's more of the on-post thing is what we're seeing, and
I think it's just important that they represent the institute when they're at other or on other campuses. Be aware of.
And from that lens, we have not seen, at least what I can go back to my day, I have not seen as many of the off-post types of issues. Working with Lexington officials, Lexington PT and PD in particular, we're not seeing a lot of open containers. We're not seeing a lot of drunk in public. We're not seeing those things, and working with our counterparts downtown. It is more refined to whether they're of age or not, they're accessing alcohol and it's coming back to post. That's where the preponderance of our alcohol-related incidences are occurring inside of barracks. Havard was a cadet. There were a lot of things Lee Havard would do that weren't in accordance with the Blue Book, and I would take that risk. Drinking in barracks was not one of them, because I felt there was a high probability I was going to get caught. The knowledge set of a lot of cadets seemed to think that risk more not cautiously, but callously. And then repeat offenders is the one that is sometimes kind of perplexing. We'll have repeat offenders drinking.
Thank you.
What else? Alex is next, I think.
Tee it up to the guy that still looks good in his lettering spot. My brother rat and roommate.
Morning, board, General Finesse. I'm gonna start off with a Rob Virginia Mill. The sport highlights. In baseball, we're obviously continuing our play, taking on UNCG in Greensboro, but Coach Sam Roberts, I believe he's the VMI alum. He is our fastest head coach to 100 career wins. And another thing, so VMI baseball, including this season, has won 25 games or more in the past 4 seasons. We haven't accomplished that since 2005 to 2008. That's only been one time that we've done that. So again, our baseball team's trending in the right direction. Lacrosse, we just hired Coach Taylor Mendoza, and our team is competing in the NEC tournament this Thursday. To add more context to that, most conferences, everybody gets in the tournament, but only the top 4 get in the NEC tournament. That's the first time we've done that since 2022, part of the Southern Conference. So again, trending in the right direction. We're playing Robert Morris. That's the #1 team in the NEC. We're ranked #4, but I'm really excited about what we can do in Pittsburgh. That game should be on ESPN Plus, so definitely check out the game and root on the Keydets. Men's basketball, you know, we talk about a lot of leadership positions. TJ Johnson, a basketball player, he is a part of the NCAA Division I Board of Directors. That's the highest governing board in the Division I. So only 3 student athletes are a part of that board. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in the NCAA, but that's great professional development. And when you think about the litigation, the infractions, and the budget of all of the NCAA, that is what TJ is learning and being a part of. So he's having a seat at the table at a major level. Most recently, the NCAA posted a video featuring TJ Johnson. So again, Colonel Dick, when you were talking about telling that story and having things to talk about, it's great to have a VMI cadet in that particular platform and having that voice. Swimming and diving continues to do great things under Coach Stacker. They spend a lot of time on the podium because they're continuing to get better and better each and every day. Our women's team had their highest finish in the American East ever. We actually have Avery Shuping, who is a 4th-classman. She had her highest finish in team history. So the swimming and diving team has been doing an exceptional job over the past few years. And I think as we enter the issue theme, that's something to also mention. We're entering the NEC, the same conference as lacrosse. I think we're going to be in a really good spot to compete for a championship in these next couple of years. So really excited for those coaches as we go to the next slide. On the track, Deontay Harris and Natural Faison, they both captured a title in their particular events. And Mr. Harris was our SoCon Freshman of the Year. We also had a Freshman of the Year in the rifle program, Soraya Sarr. And Xander Pohlman became the first shooter in the history of our program to earn an NCAA invite. Again, great opportunity to do something that we haven't done before. We also had 10 Keydets participate in Junior Olympics. In the wrestling side of things on the mat, Ryan Behill captured the 165 Southern Conference title. He started at the pigtail round, so that's really the earliest round, and he went all the way through. You know, we talk about VMI having that never say die mentality, and he became a champion. That's the first time we did that since 2020, or as a Southern Conference champion. And he also earned an invite to the NCAA championships. The last time we did that was 2024 with Dyson Dunham. But Ryan also named the Southern Conference tournament outstanding wrestler. So it was really cool. When they did the announcements of the seating, I was present in Cormac with the teammates, and they were so excited for him getting that honor. So again, great opportunities, great moments that some of these young men and young women are having here at the Institute. And water polo, first time since 2019-20 that the program has won 7 or more games in consecutive seasons. They secured their first MAC win since 2022. That was a really cool game. Just watching them, there were some tears, you know, because winning in the conference is what you want to do at the end of the day. You want to be a conference champion, but Coach Montenegro has done an exceptional job of recruiting. When we talk about the 3-legged stool, the right cadet to come in barracks and have great academics, great athletics, and also great leadership capability. So I'm really excited for the end of spring, but just wanted to highlight these sports here. From a budget standpoint, looking into FY26, we're tracking where we reported in the January Board of Visitor meeting. Since we last met, we have had some turnover. So we will have some vacancy savings in some of those positions. A lot of that turnover was opportunities that 5 people had, and they thought that was a better opportunity somewhere else. But we have been hiring and filling those roles. So we're really excited to bring on some new, fresh folks within the athletic department that can bring some ideas, but also continue to help us move forward as an athletic department. The 1/3 strategy is still execution in terms of operational budget and staff reductions, as well as the holes that we mentioned earlier in the fall. But we're still trying to find efforts from a revenue standpoint, strengthening the efforts that we have to generate revenue. So we're continuing to do that. And we talked about a few of those things yesterday in the athletic committee meeting. Really excited about Deion Betts. We have a new hire that I'm sure you all remember, Emily Fulton. So she took an opportunity at Utah State, great opportunity for her, but we're bringing in Deion Betts. He's starting on May 4th. He's very, very focused in his career in the finance and in the budgeting side of things. So we're really excited to get him here to help us and continue to push things forward from a budget standpoint. Really want to also thank the finance and support team for all they do to help us, in terms of making sure we're staying on point, because we want to make sure we continue to get better in this area fiscally and from a budget standpoint.
Jamal,
Yes, sir.
how is the staffing affecting operational readiness?
Yeah, it definitely affects us, Lester. I mean, obviously there were some decisions that I made regarding those vacancy savings earlier in the year, and it does affect us turning things over from a budget fiscal standpoint, making sure things are getting back to finance and support, making sure that we're putting ourselves in the position where it seems as if sometimes there's a lot more on some of our staff with the existing roles that we currently have and the ones that we haven't filled. If that makes any sense. So there are some times where maybe our coach, maybe some of our administrators are doing 2 or 3 more specific roles or jobs, and then that obviously does reduce time where it should be spent in other areas.
So please pay attention to that, because that's my concern, is that we'll end up losing some good people because we put too much on. I deal with that all the time with my team and at the restaurant. So just try to keep your finger on that pulse and start to see that, try to take some action. Like I said, try to be that.
Compete to win. So March 24th through the 26th. This is our 5th year doing Compete to Win. Andrew plays a huge role with him and his staff in terms of raising money, and a lot of this money is operational money that helps our specific programs. I wanted to communicate the programs that achieve their goals. We still had a very, very successful campaign, but football, rifle, swimming and diving, basketball, and water polo achieved their goals. We had 80 new members or new donors, which is always important. More people to get involved and get invested to helping our athletic programs. The Value Makes Impact is specifically the athletic discretionary fund. And you all remember the last time we were here, if there was a certain number that we reached in that particular budget, I would be a cadet for 24 hours. So last week I completed that. Colonel Havard was Cadet Havard and I was Cadet Walton. So we spent 24 hours in barracks, took classes. He was a part of the baseball team. I actually was a part of the boxing team. I took an entrepreneurship class, took a exercise physiology class and general bio. So we stayed in barracks, had our bathrobes. I had an unauthorized bathrobe. I got boned, and I left the light on, but Colonel Havard was a room orderly, so he took the bone. But again, it was great to be in the shoes of the cadets for 24 hours. You realize the faculty are fantastic in terms of what they're teaching our cadets, but also we have some really fantastic cadets that are just working together on so many different things. I was walking around barracks. A young man said, "Sir, we have Bible study. You want to come and have Bible study with me?" So I spent 20 minutes in the room having Bible study with about 6 of our cadets. So even though it was a great fundraiser, it's also a great connector to remind you of the mission of why we're here and what we're trying to do overall. So really excited about Compete to Win, and also just Andrew and his team. They do so much in terms of social media and sending out emails. So I want to make sure I also thank you, Andrew, for all you do. Yes, from a conduct standpoint, I needed to change the slide, so I apologize. We got a lot of numbers here, but I just wanted to show everyone that we're trending in the right direction in terms of conduct. And I know that Colonel Havard talked about this, but the bottom line is on the fall, we're at 26, and April 13th, we're about 18 demerits. So we're moving in the right direction. And I think some of this is because the Commandant, as he talked about, what he's doing in barracks is awesome. He also is making time for peers to have conversations about how they can get better in terms of working things out. We have a council of cabinets meetings on a monthly basis where him and I are in the room. There's leadership from a corps and regimental standpoint. And there's also leadership from the athletic standpoint, athletic captains, and we're working through, issues and talking through things to really figure out how we can mitigate those things. So hiring Coach Ingram has also been huge from a football standpoint, because we want to make sure as we bring in coaches that we're holding them accountable, but we also make sure that they're holding our players accountable. And we did a really good job of onboarding not just Coach Ingram, but also the assistant coaches, where they understood exactly what VMI was all about, not just one leg of the school, but all the legs of the school, the importance of that. So we're really excited for future. So this is just showing our rising firstclassmen in leadership. We have 30, we have 42 rising seconds and 42 rising thirds that will have rank. Just to highlight a few, Eva Torres is going to be our CEA president. Obviously, women's soccer is doing a pretty good job. They're always fantastic. Jesse Vaughn is our S6 captain, Laura Kennedy, S7 captain, and as you can see, Alpha Company commander, S4 captain, and S9. A lot of leadership across the board from our cadet athletes is always great things to see. So I also have had a chance to go and watch in the cadets receive rank. It's awesome. Think about the enthusiasm that they have for their brotherettes in JM Hall. It's pretty cool. So if you're ever around, or if you're back on post one of these days, sure the Commandant can tell you when, but it's just really cool to see them get excited, and then they'll stand on the stage and they make their tough faces when they're holding the guide on. So it's always pretty cool to be a part of those moments. Next slide. Oh, we talked about on winning with General Finesse, but we basically are going to be meeting in June, and we're going to identify gaps within the athletics culture and come up with solutions. And then obviously through those solutions, recommend those to the superintendent. One of the things that we also been doing, I've been working with my head coaches, we really identify some questions from the superintendent of what are the non-negotiables, what are the things that we really feel are important in terms of winning and finding ways to get there. And we have some speakers that we've also secured. I'll give you the names of those 5. So General Neller, he's going to focus on organizational leadership. Major Etor is going to focus on servant leadership, establishing and building trust. Rear Admiral Sands is going to focus on team building, optimizing high performance teams. We've also are going to have 2 coaches Coach Leonard Hamilton, former Florida State men's basketball coach. He was Andrew Wilson's basketball coach. He's going to focus on team culture. And we also have former football coach Urban Meyer that's going to be our keynote speaker. So we're trying to have a mix of military as well as athletics in terms of figuring out what we need to kind of push this athletic department forward. And it will be our head coaches and assistant coaches that will be involved in that. I'm really excited about that. Okay. Is there any questions for me? Such as the next one.
Let me just add to the on winning thing. This was principally focused initially on the football program. Because if there was one, we have 18 Division I sports here at VMI. When I showed up in September, you know, the football program was a hot mess. Culturally, a lot of good kids, not being held to standard. The first time Jamal took me to the practice field, and I went in the locker room and the weight room and the training room, you know, my head almost exploded. And you could see why the lack of attention to detail, the lack of focus, the lack of standards. And in my mind, was a causal factor in meltdowns in the fourth quarter of games that we could have won. It was impeding us from winning. Okay, and it was also a culture that shielded them from the big bag barracks, you know. And so in my mind, it was okay, we've got to focus on cultural norms, standards across the entire enterprise. It was really focused on, I got to fix football. Coach Ingram fixed football in about 72 to 96 hours. And I'm not kidding. Class of 27 guys developed 10 points that had to be churned around. Jamal and I was in the room and Jamal was kind of asking them where they wanted to coach. So took notes and we tried to find the right fit. I think we succeeded beyond all expectations, but when I went back to that cadet who's an honor corps class, you know, a ranker in the first class next year, honor corps vice president. He said, sir, he corrected all 10 of these in like 4 days. Like we're a completely different outfit now because they're not holding. They're not accepted substandard performance in any aspect. You go down there today and they're putting the weights back after a lifting session, which is done by the numbers and a lot of energy and moving back and forth. It's, you know, it's really impressive to watch, you know, and the strength coach sitting there and he's like, hey, that rack is one rung too high, put it down. You know, everything is by the numbers. You know, the locker room's pristine, the training room's pristine. You know, on the field, they're moving with energy from A to B, B to C. Everything's intentional. They're getting trained. You talk to the cadets, they're like, yeah, I'm a lot sore, but I'm learning more and I'm getting better. This is really trying to find like, what are the non-negotiables for every program we have for what does a cadet athlete represent? What does a program represent? You want to add to it, you know, lacrosse wants to have high and tight haircuts and wear suits. That's fun. What are the non-negotiable fundamental foundations of every program? It's also going to find issues that within the athletic strategic plan that every 18 sports, there's going to be some overlap. And those will become the priority issues that we have to knock away in order to win. And we got to change the mindset. It's not about competing, it's about winning. Winning the right way, winning the VMI baby, we're winning. Now, if you want people to be excellent, one, you got to reward excellence. So next year, you know, all those cadets you saw on like they won the Southern Conference Championship and win track or wrestling or whatever, you know, we're going to have a champions dinner at the end of the year in the CLE, bring their parents in, everybody, and get them up and, you know, give them an attaboy in front of, you know, their peers, because winning matters and being a champion matters. And you start to promote what you reward. And so we'll do that next year a little bit better. And so all of this is integrated into getting the mindset shift from, oh, woe is me, little VMI, we can't fill in the blank, to Why, and this was the kid who won the wrestling thing, Virgil.
Ryan V. Hill.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
He's sitting in my office. I was talking to him and he said, you know, sir, I just sat there and I knew I had to wrestle in just to get into the tournament. But I looked myself in the mirror and I said, why not me? Why not me? And then he goes around and wins the Southern Conference Championship. So that's got to be our mentality. Why not us? You know, why aren't we champions? And it first starts, you know, in the mind. And so that's what we're trying to get everybody to understand and everybody trying to change. You know, we have a saying in the Marine Corps that positions are seldom lost through enemy action. They're first lost in the mind of the commander. And so in the mind of the commander and all of our troops, our athletes, we got to have a mindset that we're not ever beaten. And quite frankly, last year, especially in some of our teams, you could say that. So that's part of what we're trying to do. There's a facility piece in this. There's going to be, you know, there's a resource piece in this. You know, athletics is kind of like, you know, working in the Pentagon. It ain't a little bit about the money. It's all about the money. Because money buys you coaches, money buys you trainers, money buys you equipment that you need to keep people healthy. But those will happen over time. We'll raise all that. But really, the first thing is you have to have a winning mindset. You got to commit to it. You got to do it every day when no one's looking. And that's what we're trying to instill. I think it will bleed over into how we do things in barracks. The Commandant has been doing that for 3 years, for 3 semesters, going on his fourth 2 years. And we're trying to leverage that. I talked to the Corps on the 6th or 7th, whatever reading day is in the morning, not the whole Corps, the rising first class, rising second class, rising third class. And I'm just going to set expectations. Here's what I expect next year. I'm going to be quite frank to them. Like, if you don't want to meet these expectations, don't come back. I'm a little scared about saying that because I need them back. But if they're not going to get with the program, his program, you know, I don't want kids who are going to get 200 demerits. Well, you got to work at that and not working in a positive direction. So these are all things. I will tell you, the athletes have done a remarkable job of getting back into the battery, so to speak, with this. And so has most of the Corps. And we just have to level set expectations and say, look, you know, for everything, for discipline, for fitness, for acting like, hey, I want you to come back fit. I want you to study hard. I want you to obey the rules. You know, do right all the time, no matter who's watching, not real hard, you know. And if we can all commit to that, you'll start seeing it in the academic buildings, in the barracks, on the athletic field. Excellence begets excellence. And that's kind of what we want to do. And I think it's why I focus a lot on athletics, because it's one area of our program that's just not quite as excellent uniformly as it should be. So.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comment? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, Superintendent and staff who gave those presentations this morning. Greatly appreciate not only the presentation, but all the work that you put into making this place hum. And all the stuff that you're doing to lean forward into elevating the performance across the board. Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, we adjourn now to our committee meetings in 15 minutes. All right, we're 10:45. It's 10:28 now. 10:45, we'll start with committee meetings at 10:30. Or excuse me, 12:30, be at lunch in the hall.